I want you to picture something. It is a Tuesday afternoon in the summer of 1961. The heat outside is brutal. Inside a roadside bar just off Route 66 in New Mexico, a group of men are laughing, loudly, cruelly. They are laughing at an old man in a worn army jacket who is sitting alone at the far end of the counter, nursing a glass of water because he cannot afford anything else. The old man does not respond. He has learned not to. He fought in the Pacific. He lost 2 fingers on Okinawa. He came home to a country that had already moved on. Now he just sits, quiet, trying to be invisible. And then the front door opens. Robert Mitchum steps inside. He is 44 years old, 6'1", built like a man who has been hit many times and never found it particularly interesting. He scans the room in exactly the way a predator scans a field. Not nervous, not aggressive, just reading it. He reads it very fast. What happens next takes less than 3 minutes, but the people in that bar will be telling the story for the rest of their lives. To understand why it matters, you need to understand who Robert Mitchum actually was. Not the Hollywood version, the real one. Act 1. The Making of a Man. Robert Charles Derman. Mitchum is born on August 6, 1917, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. His father is a rail worker. When Robert is 2 years old, his father is crushed to death between 2 rail cars in a switching yard accident. The family has almost nothing after that. His mother works, his grandmother helps. The depression arrives and makes everything worse. By the time Robert is 14, he is gone. He hops a freight train heading south and west and disappears into the vast grinding machinery of Depression-era America. He rides the rails with men twice his age. He fights for food. He sleeps in fields. He learns very early that the world does not care about you and that this is not a tragedy. It is simply the starting condition. He makes it to Georgia. In Savannah, he is arrested for vagrancy. He is 16 years old. He is sentenced to work on a chain gang. For weeks, he digs roads and breaks rocks in the Georgia heat, wearing leg irons, sleeping in a locked barracks at night. He eventually escapes, walking away during a work detail, disappearing into the tree line. He carries the scars from the shackles on his legs for the rest of his life. He drifts north. He works as a coal miner in Pennsylvania. He works in a factory in Ohio. The monotony of the factory nearly breaks him. He has a small nervous collapse from the grinding repetition of machine work and has to leave. He moves to California, where his sister is living, and falls almost accidentally into a local theater group in Long Beach. He has never acted before. He finds it absurdly easy. He finds that the darkness he has been carrying since the freight trains translates directly into something that makes other people feel things. Hollywood notices him in 1943. He starts doing bit parts in westerns. By 1945, he is getting nominated for Academy Awards. By 1948, he is one of the biggest male stars in the country. And in 1948, the Los Angeles police arrest him at a party for marijuana possession. The studio panics. His publicists panic. His lawyer panics. Every person in his professional life tells him the same thing: apologize, grovel, beg for forgiveness, perform remorse. In 1948, a drug arrest is career suicide. It is the kind of scandal that finishes people permanently. Mitchum serves 50 days in the Los Angeles County Jail. He sweeps floors. He plays cards with the guards. When a reporter asks him through the bars what jail is like, he thinks for a moment and says it is just like Palm Springs, only with fewer people you'd want to know. He walks out of jail. The box office lines wrap around the block. His first film after prison is a massive hit, because the public does not want a sanitized performer. They want a man who has actually lived something. The studio learns something important that year. Robert Mitchum is not controllable, and the uncontrollable thing is exactly what they are selling. Act 2. The Professional. Here is what directors discover when they work with Mitchum for the first time. He does not rehearse. He shows up on set, sometimes having glanced at the script that morning, sometimes not at all. He stands in front of the camera. The director calls action. Mitchum delivers the scene perfectly in one take and walks away to go have a cigarette. This drives some directors into a quiet fury. They prepare exhaustively. They block scenes for days. They expect actors to show up trembling with commitment. And then Mitchum arrives, bored, and is better than everyone who tried. He makes over 110 films across 5 decades. He works with John Huston and Howard Hawks and Charles Lawton. He plays killers and drifters and broken men and dangerous men with a naturalness that critics spend careers trying to describe. In 1955, Charles Lawton casts him as Reverend Harry Powell in The Night of the Hunter, a murderous fake preacher with love tattooed on the knuckles of one hand and hate on the other. It is one of the most terrifying performances in the history of cinema. Mitchum barely appears to be working, he is simply present. And what he is present with is everything he saw on the roads and the chain gangs, the specific quality of predatory patience that exists in men who have nothing left to lose. He does not talk about his method. He does not have a method. When journalists ask him about acting, he says he has 2 styles, with a horse and without a horse. When they press him for more, he lights a cigarette and changes the subject. He is paid like a god. He lives like a man who does not care about being paid like a god. He grows vegetables on a small farm. He writes poetry that he does not publish. He drinks with crew members, not with studio executives. He remembers the names of every grip and gaffer and driver he works with. He forgets the names of people who consider themselves important. Act 3, New Mexico, 1961. He is driving through New Mexico in the summer of 1961. He is between films. He stops at a roadside bar because it is hot and he is thirsty, and there is no particular reason not to. The bar is the kind of place that exists in the margins of the American highway system. Locals, truck drivers, a pool table with a torn felt corner, a jukebox playing something country and lonesome. The bartender knows every face in the room except the 2 that have just appeared. The loud men at the near end of the bar who are passing through, and Robert Mitchum, who has just walked in from the parking lot. At the far end of the counter, alone on a stool, is an old man. He is wearing a faded Army service jacket. His hands are on the counter. He is drinking water. He is keeping very still, in the specific way that a person keeps still when they are hoping not to draw attention. The loud men have already drawn his attention. They are making remarks about the jacket, about old men who think their service means anything, about the government checks they probably cash. The remarks are delivered with the particular cruelty of men who feel completely safe because no one in the room is going to stop them. Mitchum sits down at the bar. He orders a beer. He drinks it. He looks straight ahead. He is listening. The remarks continue. The old man says nothing. His hands on the counter are completely still, which is the hardest kind of still. Mitchum finishes his beer. He sets the glass down on the bar very carefully. He turns on his stool and looks at the loud men with his famous half-closed eyes. Not angry, not threatening, just looking, in the way that a very large and very unworried man looks at something he is deciding about. He slides off the stool. He walks to the far end of the bar. He sits down next to the old man. He signals the bartender. He orders 2 beers and a whiskey and tells the bartender the whiskey is for his friend. The bartender looks at him, looks at the old man, and does not ask any questions. The loud men have gone quiet. Not because they are afraid exactly, because they are suddenly aware that the geometry of the room has changed. The man who just sat down at the end of the bar is very large and very calm, and the calmness feels like a specific kind of warning. Mitchum does not look at the loud men again. He turns to the old man and asks him where he served. The old man looks up. He says, "The Pacific, Okinawa, Leyte Gulf." He says it quietly, like he is not sure the information is wanted. Mitchum nods. He says he knows a little about that part of the world. He asks the man his name. They talk for almost an hour. The loud men finish their drinks and leave without looking back. The bar goes back to its regular temperature. The bartender refills the old man's whiskey twice without being asked and does not charge for it. Nobody talks about what just happened. Everyone in the room understands exactly what just happened. When Mitchum leaves, he pays for everything on the counter and walks to his car. He does not look around to see if anyone noticed. He does not need anyone to have noticed. He drives back onto the highway and disappears into the New Mexico afternoon. Act 4, What It Means. The bartender tells the story. He tells it to the regulars. The regulars tell it to other people. It travels the way these stories travel. Slowly, on the ground, person to person, without photographs or verification, which is exactly why it survives. Because the story is not really about a bar in New Mexico. It is about a very specific and very rare kind of human quality. The quality of a man who sees something wrong and corrects it without making a performance of the correction. No speech. No confrontation. No moment designed to be remembered. Just a man sitting down next to someone who needed a person to sit down next to him. That is the whole story. And the whole story is everything. Mitchum comes from the world that produced that old veteran. The freight trains and the chain gangs and the factories and the hard years are not background color in his biography. They are the specific education that makes him capable of recognizing in an instant the particular loneliness of a man who served his country and came home to find his country had stopped paying attention. He knows that loneliness from the inside. It does not require explanation. It requires company. He is a man who does not perform virtue. He performs his job, which he does with inhuman ease. Everything else he does quietly, without an audience, on the way from one place to another. Act 5. The Later Years and Legacy. In the 1,960 seconds and 1,970 seconds, Mitchum continues working. He makes Cape Fear in 1,962, playing a calculating, merciless ex-convict named Max Cady, a performance so completely inhabited that Gregory Peck, his co-star, says afterward that Mitchum genuinely unsettled him during filming. In 1973, he makes The Friends of Eddie Coyle, a quiet, devastating crime film in which he plays a low-level Boston criminal with nothing left to bargain with. It is perhaps his most honest performance. Critics call it the best work of his career. He shrugs and moves on to the next one. Younger actors study him and find him almost impossible to explain. Clint Eastwood, who builds an entire career on the architecture of contained masculine menace, acknowledges the debt. Robert De Niro, preparing for Cape Fear's 1991 remake, watches every Mitchum film he can find and describes what he sees as a completely interior performance. Everything happening somewhere behind the eyes, never on the surface. Mitchum does not give master classes. He does not write memoirs that explain his philosophy. He grows tomatoes. He reads. He gives very good interviews because he finds journalists faintly amusing and enjoys saying true things in unexpected ways. He is 79 years old when he dies on July 1, 1997, in Santa Barbara, California, of lung cancer and emphysema. He needed, occasionally, to sit down next to a man at the end of a bar in New Mexico and have a beer with him. That was enough. That was everything. Closing. Legacy statement. There is a photograph of Robert Mitchum taken sometime in the 1950 seconds. He is leaning against a wall. Cigarette in his left hand, smoke rising, eyes half closed, looking directly into the camera. He is not performing relaxation. He is not performing anything. He is simply there, occupying his own life with absolute completeness, and the camera is lucky enough to be pointed at him. Over 110 films. 5 decades of work. A career that should have ended in a jail cell in 1948 and instead became the template for every cool, self-possessed, authentically dangerous male performance that followed. Eastwood, Nicholson, De Niro, McConaughey. The lineage is direct and fully acknowledged. The world belongs to those who do not ask for permission. Authenticity is everything. Pass it on. If this story means something to you, subscribe. Leave a comment about the person in your life who reminds you of this. Hit the notification bell and share this with someone who needs to hear it today.